Everybody gets a fair reaction, you know? I get the work, but you do it like that way. Just less stress on.
First rodeo.
Pardon?
Before we get started, we're supposed to have public comments on these agendas, remember? We were gonna do that going forward without planning, just for what it's worth. Just a reminder, and the only reason I said this is because I see the public hearing thing
Right.
there, which is a little confusing, because then people are like, hey, there's supposed to be a public hearing tonight for this? So, for what it's worth, you gotta make sure we keep the public comments on there. You know, a couple months back, and I think it just dropped off.
I will mention it to the clerk. You ready?
I'm ready.
Barb? Okay. Let's call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Start over roll call. Commissioner Mecca.
Here.
Trustee Honeyshaw.
Present.
Trustee Renner.
Here.
Planner Sensky.
Here.
President Lysick here. Clerk Mecca.
Here.
Commissioner Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Zimbrowski.
Here.
Also here. Or Marshal Rock. And Engineer Rock.
Here.
On item 3, well, I guess item 2 says public hearings. It's supposed to be public comments. Any public comments? If there are no public comments, I'll move along to item 3, consideration and approval of minutes from August 26th. That's the wrong. I'm reading the wrong thing. September 23rd. I apologize. 2021.
I'll make a motion to dispense with reading the minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I apologize that I don't remember. Was Commissioner Fickhouse still present for the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Last time.
That was the last one? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it's approved. Item 4A, new business, review, discussion, and possible action on the request of applicant/property owner Jamin Peterson doing business as Lake Park Storage Condominiums to permit building occupancy prior to completion of all of the requirements as set forth in the approved and recorded development agreement and deed restriction pertaining to this project. The property is located at West 229 South 8650 Big Bend Drive in the Zone B3 General Business District.
We have a development agreement and deed restriction that was developed by the Planning Commission over the course of many months of review on this project. And as part of that document, there are some very specific specifications about at what point the first occupancies can be granted in phase one. And you have a copy of an email string that, just get to that sort of itemizes all of those, and I'm referring to it essentially as a punch list. Probably find it more expedient to open it up here.
Is this the fresh copy that was just received
Yeah.
earlier this
The one with all
afternoon?
the colors.
Got
would
reds,
be the
different
best.
shades of reds, blue, yellow highlighting.
A previous copy, well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, a previous copy was in your packet that had the yellow and red comments and pink comments from staff. And then the newest copy has comments from the applicant in blue.
Right, so as we go through this, I'm gonna run through these and give you a quick summary, and then I'm gonna let you come back to them and take them up kind of on an item by item basis. There are points where Damon Peterson is asking for relief from the standard of having to have certain things completed and get occupancy of this first building before they're done. So first of all, paragraph A, with respect to soil sampling, I'm going to let Naomi handle that one, but we know that there is some contaminated soil that was excavated from the dump site as part of the road construction. It apparently has been stockpiled on site, apparently has been tested and found to be slightly above the standards acceptable for disposal anywhere. So there are plans in the works to have that properly hauled off the site, but it's not complete yet. And the development agreement says until it is, there shouldn't be any occupancy, okay? So I'm gonna just keep moving through these, and then you can come back to all of them. Item B, with respect to construction of the Edgewood Avenue, the private street that connects down to Edgewood Avenue, it needs to be complete and approved by the village engineer to the construction specifications that were in the agreement, in the construction plans. I will let the village engineer address that one quickly.
At the time that we received the request, I believe the road was still under construction. And I learned today that it has been complete and is ready for inspection. So we have not inspected it, but that was at about 4 o'clock.
Okay. Item C, the existing private gravel drive that extends from 164 to Big Bend Road, supposed to be constructed to a minimum 24-foot width with existing gravel base topped with wrap, and has to be controlled for emergency access only. Is it complete to spec according to the village engineer? No, it's not. The gating isn't in. Actually, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a question about whether that section of road is constructed to spec at this point.
And the answer is no, not. The comment from the applicant was that they were going to top dress it with the additional inch by November 8th. So it has not been inspected for completion yet.
Then, with respect to complete and code compliant DNR abandonment of the existing well or wells on the property, it has not been completed. Jamin indicates in his response that the well pump has been pulled, the measurements are taken, and bentonite will be put in next week, and the paperwork submitted to the village by November 8th. So I believe there's some DNR standard for how that's done. Do they sign off on something? Do we?
Yeah, we should get something.
Okay, so we'll need something from the DNR saying that's all according to Hoyle. Then with respect to the dumpster pad and enclosure, Jamin is asking for that to be deferred to a future time for the installation. And I understand it's true that there will be a construction site dumpster on that property for a long time to come yet, that I presume you're going to allow unit owners to go ahead and use. My concern is, I'm not sure where else on the site you're gonna put this. And I guess until there's some specific location identified, I think what pushed it out of its spot is the septic system.
Not necessarily, you know, once the site, the buildings got up, stuff shrunk down as it normally does. And if you look on the site plan, building 1 slightly goes past building 2. And it wouldn't be a big deal if nothing's there, but if there's a gate and enclosure, they could swing into that, but then bringing that dumpster enclosure out another 20 feet is really gonna hinder, it's really gonna hinder that tenant getting into that unit. It may be something as simple as putting the septic holding tank in, pushing that dumpster enclosure back another 10 feet, and then pouring the concrete in over the septic tank. But again, until all of that's done, or whether or not we look for a different place even on phase 2.
So for my part, I would say we should ask for an alternate location to be depicted, and required within some certain deadline to be installed. But that's up to the commission when you double back on this thing. Gating and fencing for Exhibit F. For the time being, I think that drive is being used heavily for construction equipment and vehicles, and they'd like to continue to use it that way. The trouble we have with that is that leaving it open for those vehicles also means leaving it open for anyone else to come in and out through that route, which is not intended in the long term. Commission can decide whether you're willing to accept the idea of just putting a chain across it that gets opened for construction vehicles, or whether you're going to require the gates be installed before occupancy. Paragraph G, the proposed septic system. It sounds like they're still trying to get that installed, hopefully within the next 2 weeks, Jamin says in his update today, and the well within the next week. So those are pending to completion, but again, they're not quite done yet. Paragraph H, all paving outlined on the approved plans. Not completed yet, but Jamin thinks that he will have it ready for inspection as completed prior to occupancy being requested. Stormwater facilities, I'll let Naomi address that, the status of that right now.
So the developers agreement said that this kind of goes along with him as an as-built drawing of the stormwater management facilities. So you know the stormwater management facilities have been graded. It still has not filled up with water. Will Hines been checking on that. Kind of some conversation with Jamin about asking his contractor to maybe look into why that is. We're not sure if it is a problem, if it just things on the site are not getting into the storm sewer system. The only way we would know if it leaked would be if we filled it up with water and kind of watched it to see if the clay liner was working appropriately. I would like to see that functioning, know that it's functioning, and have it as-built before occupancy.
Can I address that issue?
Why don't you wait till we go through
Okay.
all of these,
All right.
and if you want to discuss any of them for potential forgiveness, take it up then. Building number 1 is not yet completed, but Jamin expects to ask for a final inspection before November 15th. Building 2 is not complete, building 4 is not complete. Those are the phase 1 buildings.
If, I do have, I'll bring it up now, I think, from Jason, sent me an itemized list of some of the building items that he has typically would see completed before occupancy. From Jason Cromie, there's no power to the buildings. I've inspected the service and sent it into We Energies. Building number 1 is still under construction as of today. Insulation is being installed. And then sheet covering. It kind of got cut off, but I think that's about the end of that item. Item number 3, exterior siding is not complete. Item 4, no garage doors. Item 5, interior electrical not complete. Item 6, there's plumbing but no septic. Item number 7, FYI, owner's lounge is not going to be completed until a later date. Item number 8, no address signs at either entrance. Item number 9, parking area is rough grade. Item number 10, fire inspection approval is needed. And then item, I believe it meant is needed. It just says fire inspection approval. I'm gonna interpolate that, it's still needed. And then item number 11, remember when we give occupancy, we will have the public on site. That's what he wanted to throw into.
Paragraph M talks about getting the as-built drawings. We don't have those yet, is what I understand from Naomi. Paragraph 11, the landscaping was required to be installed concurrent with the completion of every building. It sounds like we're gonna be too late this year to get any of the landscaping, including around the stormwater pond, Jamin?
That's done,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so some of the landscaping has been installed, but not to the extent that it's worth doing a full site inspection of landscaping for the phase
Correct.
until spring. So we'll have to figure out how we work that out. And then paragraph 12 talks about permitted uses in the development agreement deed restriction. And it itemized by the planning commission's instructions the very specific types of use that could be permitted in each one of these units, and calls for an occupancy permit to be issued to each individual unit. So, Jamin, you had said something in an email about looking for overall occupancy for building 1. There is no overall occupancy.
Well, that the building is been inspected basically and ready to go, and then as long as each individual tenant gets their occupancy permit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so just so you're aware that, I think you said that you have some closings coming up. You have people planning to close on units.
Supposed to, yeah.
And that's fine, you can sell units, but they don't have any right to occupy the space. And whatever use it is they have in mind may or may not be allowed, just so you're aware. And that's clear in this deed restriction, which should be a part of their title, so they're,
Well, that's clear in their condo docs too, so
okay, yeah.
that's, I can sell it, and if they didn't come to you guys, that's their problem.
Yeah, so you're not gonna get an overall building occupancy. You're gonna get something from Jason that simply says you've
That's what, yeah.
completed the work according to plans.
Mhm.
But no occupancy. Paragraph 24, public safety officials having keys provided to get in through the gated areas. If some relief is given and something less than the gating and fences that we had requested as part of this approval, make sure that the police department at least and fire department have access through the chains, locks, anything that's put out there, if an exemption is given. Paragraph 25, exterior lighting, it sounds like it might be ready for inspection on building 1. I would expect that more than just building 1 lighting would be in, that you've got some circulation lighting.
We didn't have any of that on the lighting plan, it was just per building.
It's all building lighting?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we had no lights, poles, or anything like that, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. And then just site inspection to confirm that the buildings were built according to the architectural drawings. That hasn't been done, but that only takes, a few minutes on the site to do. So that's it. That's the extent of the exceptions that he's looking for, a path to get into, get occupancy in building number 1 with relief from some of these things. So turn it over to the commission.
But he's not technically asking for occupancy.
It's not occupancy, it's approval.
He's asking for approval so
Yeah.
the tenants can have occupancy,
Correct.
right?
It's
Yes.
basically inspection approval, which opens that door.
Gotcha.
It's approval by the village that I can go ahead and release these for them to get owner occupied.
Well, how should we do it? Go back to
So from the top,
A and just work our way down?
I'm fine with whatever approach.
Okay, well, I'll take the lead on part A here for soil sampling. So, where do we stand on the soil? I know that I saw several different items come across. There's a couple piles out there of contaminated soil. Has that soil now been profiled through to be disposed of?
Correct.
Okay. What's the timeline for getting that off-site?
I think it's written in here within the next couple of weeks.
Next couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, since that's contaminated soil, is there any protection against having that spread to any of the surrounding grounds?
Yep, there's silt fence around the border of the property.
Right, but not around the actual pile.
The whole site's contaminated.
Well, I don't think we want to go on record to say the entire site's contaminated. If you want to consider it to be all contaminated, then we'll consider it all to be contaminated.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, is there any protection? Are you planning on tarping it in the meantime?
No,
Okay. Do we have recommendations that it should be tarped? Usually if you have contaminated soil that's been separated through, it needs to be tarped to such a degree that it has no water penetration.
Our recommendation, so we were provided with the soil sampling and I sent it over to Travis. And our recommendation came back, and that was, I apologize, the last email I sent out today, the last attachment. We had kind of the same emails with different threads, but anyway. You'll see that on October 18th, after Travis, the environmental department reviewed the information and the recommendation from PSI, which is also in your packet. So the applicant's consultant, PSI, basically his recommendation was to just keep it on site. PSI did not indicate any other measures. When Travis looked at the recommendation from PSI, when I talked with him, the recommendation I sent over to Jamin on the 18th was that the spoils as tested, acknowledging that they exceed allowances for 2 substances, and then asking for Wisconsin DNR approval to reuse the soils on the dump site. And in addition, if soils are reused, they shall be covered in appropriate method determined by PSI and approved by Wisconsin DNR.
Okay.
And then alternatively, the spoils would likely be accepted at landfill to disposal. All tickets for proper disposal should be provided to the village for our records. So if you're gonna keep it, the recommendation then was yes, if you're gonna keep it on site, reuse, whether it's sitting in a stockpile or spreading, whatever that plan was to be, that they had to get DNR approval for coverage.
Okay.
did you follow up with PSI on that or no?
PSI,
Yeah.
that was only his recommendation. I called Joe Martinez from the DNR, and he sent me over 3 options. 1 was haul off-site, 2 was keep on site for long-term with whatever the DNR specifies. I'm assuming it's like covering it with 2 feet of clay, which isn't an option. And then the 3rd is getting an exemption to keep it on site, not long-term, but like temporarily.
Well, I was just talking about like tarping it, not putting 2 foot of clay or anything over the top of it.
Right.
Just to keep the water off of it, because right now I'm sure that with the rain, it's coming down on that and it's spreading it out as well.
Right.
And
It's not gonna be any more than it already has when it was just sitting there.
What's that?
It's not gonna be any more than it already has just sitting there.
Well, looking at
It's the top,
recommendations from the village to say this, it was a recommendation from the DNR. Typically, if you have contaminated soil, it gets covered.
I'm just going off of what PSI recommended and what the DNR recommended.
Exactly.
Nobody said anything about tarping, so I didn't tarp it.
Okay. So the next question I have, I noticed in one of the emails, you took some of the soils from that pile and spread it out to the west of the road, east of the stormwater pond. we're gonna try to bring that up to elevation. I
Well,
believe we need-
that's initially what we were gonna try to do until we were told.
But the
that we
soil is
couldn't.
over there, correct? It's laid out on the ground?
Correct.
All right, so now what do we do with that? Because that's contaminated soil that's now been placed back on the site with
Wait,
no validation to do
I
that,
think there might have been too many pronouns in that sentence and some confusion.
okay?
You didn't take any of the contaminated soil and put it on the clean side.
No, we took topsoil from
You
the
were
dump
going
site.
to,
Yes, correct,
but you found out you couldn't.
correct,
Just clarifying that,
Yes.
'cause I understood what it said in the email or
yes.
what you were going after, and I think,
The topsoil, the leftover topsoil from the Lake Park site, I brought down like whatever it was,
right,
8-10 loads, spread that on that side, correct.
Did you take any of the road spoil and spread it on the dump site?
No,
Because
Every single part of it is in the,
all of it is in that pile on the side
okay,
of the
because there
road.
is an email that it says that,
back on the October 7th.
everything was, wait. Everything was stockpiled, and I'm not gonna get until this week, when I used some of the topsoil material to level out along the main drive, but only on the dump property.
Correct, that was my intentions, and then when you said you have to check with Travis, then we didn't end up doing that.
Okay. So, my question is, in regards to the sampling, and I'm going to try to say this as best as I can before we move forward with approving the road, as even a temporary private road, do we need to do any more testing around that road to determine if there's surfacial contamination on the landfill site? The reason I stress that is that this was built, the road was given permission to be built with the premise given to the DNR that there was only going to be a certain amount of soil taken off the top and that it wouldn't disturb any contaminated soils. The DNR presumed that there would be none due to the location where the road was going to go.
They never said that they would presume that there wouldn't be any contaminants, they said that they didn't have an issue with us digging down into the dump.
Dig it up, it's right in here if you want to go to that, Jamie, because it's words semantically from the DNR that said that you would, it's
Okay,
most
that's
likely
fine, I
not going to
believe
be
you,
any
I believe
contamination.
you're
Well,
probably
let her
right.
read it.
Okay, if you want, Ray, that's fine. We'll have to find it. All right, so there was 3 letters that came from the DNR. The first one was the general permit. They said that they would not have to have a historic fill exemption from the department for its construction since the road would be located on a landfill. Since the proposed road would be constructed over the top of an existing road without disturbing the landfill cap, approval from the Department of Natural Resources will not be required. So then there was a follow-up to this, to where Mr. Wendland wrote back to Naomi and said that he had spoken with Jamin. And when he wrote the letter prior, he had reviewed the plans for the proposed road and was aware of the fact that the new road was not going to be constructed directly over the old road. I realized that the new road would be straightened and would not align exactly with the old road. The wording was a generalization of the facts, but the new road would still be constructed in the general location of the old road. I also realized that there would have to be some excavation for a new road construction. Most likely, the existing road was used to access the landfill area while it was receiving waste, and the immediate area around the road was not actually filled with waste. Therefore, I do not feel that the cap will be disturbed by the minor realignment of the proposed road. It would be a different matter if a new road was proposed directly over the fill area of the landfill. In that case, the cap would be disturbed and our approval would be required. I would like to reiterate that Department of Natural Resources approval will not be needed for the proposed road. I hope this clarifies my position. So then the last thing that came through from the, going in reverse. The last one here is from Travis at Intertech PSI. Following a review is provided by Kapoor. Obvious contaminant impacts exceeded residential contaminant levels that would pose a significant concern do not appear to be present within the subsurface. No, wait a minute, that's not it. I'm not seeing the last one. Basically, he just reiterated the same thing that he did on his second clarification. He just basically said that it's not anticipated to be able to find contaminants in that general area due to the fact that there's a landfill cap and that you guys.
Where did it say anticipated on there, even, or presumably? I still don't get what you're saying.
It's not, I'm not after what he said, I'm after the.
You're interpreting it the way you want it.
Okay. Let me pull up the main thing here. We'll take time to tit this for tat, we'll do it.
Well, I mean, if I may comment now while you're looking that up, is I do, you know, believe that the DNR and Travis, in reviewing the DNR's response and the information that was provided, did not anticipate any contamination because the thought that there was a cap on the landfill and we were only disturbing minimal scraping of the material. With the data that has been provided that this material was contaminated and it's right on the surface, it's not, you know, we were mostly concerned initially about the pond. This material being right on the surface, as far as Kapoor's, you know, in assisting the village in kind of navigating this development, our role was reviewing the information provided by the applicant, which when we asked for, Jamin provided absolutely everything we asked for. However, I am not sure at this point that I am able, in my role, to ask for the correct things if there is indeed contaminated soil on site. Meaning, I don't have the background as an environmental engineer to be able to navigate that for the village if there is indeed contamination, and our environmental engineer just said, yes, it's there, it needs to be covered, DNR needs to be involved. So, for recommendations of what to do, or what the road is like now that there's contamination underneath, I can make some recommendations on places to, how to go forward. Do we involve the DNR, have them come out, give another recommendation, give them the additional information? It sounds like you've talked to the DNR. I don't have any of that correspondence with the DNR that Jamin has had. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there, that this was an unexpected.
Well, here's the problem. We're going in reverse here. You guys did not require me to do these soil samples on the dump site. It was highly recommended that I did, but it was not required by any of you.
It is the right thing to do though.
Right.
And we do not, under village ordinances, we don't regulate landfills.
Right.
We just don't. So if the DNR, if this is a landfill, And the DNR has said, we don't anticipate contamination with
The DNR never said we don't anticipate
Okay.
Did
contamination.
not say that.
Can we go back to the DNR now and say, hey,
The DNR said we can put a road in over the landfill. We
Okay,
have no
so
issue with that.
if we
They
go
never
back to
said.
the DNR now and say, we put this road in,
Yep.
we now know what these soils are and what's in them, what do you recommend?
But
They already know that.
it's an active, open landfill. So I could dig and take soil samples from any square inch of that, and there's a high probability that there will be sampling that comes in higher than what is okay for residential use. We know that. It's an active, open landfill. I don't know why, again, I did this, yes, they're there, but where do we stop now? Okay, so I'm gonna spend $10,000 right now to get rid of just this pile. Now Tony's gonna recommend that we test 6 spots over between the retention pond and the road. Then he's gonna recommend that we test another 6 spots over on this side. And then all of those come back hot, so where do we stop? Now we scrape the first top foot off to try to get rid of those soils. That cost me another $100,000.
So while you're going off the deep end to the right, do you want to listen to what I was going to try to propose before you guys just presumptively think that I'm going to try to take it all away in small little samples and
Okay,
not be able to do it?
all right, sure.
Okay, so the DNR, whenever they wrote their letter, was under the presumption that no contamination would be found where you're going to put it. Now we've discovered that there's contamination where that road is going in. We need to engage the DNR. We need to share the information with them and what the soil samples came back with. And there's going to have to be some discussion back and forth about why is that contamination there. They did not think there would be a high probability of finding contamination where it was found. Okay? So it means the DNR was in your favor, and it was with us, they gave us the right documentation to say, put the road in. We don't need a permit to do it. We're going to put it in a place where we don't think there's going to be any contamination. Okay? So whenever it went in, and you tested the spoils, it came back as hot. Okay? It's not greatly hot, but it's showing signs that it's got things in it that shouldn't be there. That's benzene ring materials. That's probably presumptively coming back from coal tar. That's neither here nor there, but it means that that's probably indicative of other things that's in that site. But why is it there? Where's the cap? That's my big concern. Everybody is under the assumption that there's a cap. If this contamination is there, either there's no cap or it's on top of the cap. How did it get there if it's on top of the cap? If we put the road in and we allow you guys to go ahead and put the surface on it, now it's impermeable, that water's going to shed off and it's going to be concentrated into the soils around it. It's going to go into a ditch line. It's going to get potentially driven down gradient with the rest of the stormwater. Plus the stormwater that's coming off of the stormwater retention pond is going across that.
This is really gonna stretch, Tony. Jesus.
It's not a stretch
Oh
at
my
all. I
God.
hope you understand the rules and regulations that the
You
state
know
and
what?
the
The
DNR.
DNR got they know what was what we scraped off of
Then
it.
let's engage. Why did you not want to engage the DNR with it? That's
Because
all
it's
I'm asking.
time. That's
I don't
like
care.
6, 8, 12
Doesn't matter. We
months.
didn't want it. We did it.
You
Under our
did, but
own-
now there's new discovery.
No, there's not. When we did that, it came up hot. The DNR got all that. They decided, okay, here's your options.
That was back way early before the road was put in.
That was just a couple weeks ago when we scraped it up and they got the new results from
My
PSI.
recommendation is that we have to engage the DNR and have them tell us what it is. It's probably going to come back and they're just going to say, okay, we know there's contamination there. We'll do some investigation on it and hopefully it comes back.
That's fine, that's
Oh my
fine.
God.
But why do we need to hold up everything for that, is what I'm getting at.
Well, I mean, we can't allow the public access to the property if it's contaminated and the DNR says it's an issue.
The DNR didn't say it was an
Well,
issue.
no, that's what we're wanting to
You
engage
guys
them
are
in.
just assuming
No,
everything.
We want to engage them in a conversation to tell them, they can tell us, is it an issue or not? I have not heard from
Oh
the DNR
my
on this
Lord.
issue. I have not been provided anything from the DNR. Not one piece of information that they have seen the sampling and have provided comment. I haven't seen that.
You got the letter that Joe Martinez sent Jamie, didn't you?
No.
He
It's
didn't
in the
send-
email, isn't it?
He didn't send me a letter, he just.
Or-
I have
the
gotten
email.
nothing from DNR. That's why this is the conversation we need to have. Maybe it's fine, maybe DNR says put down 6 inches of topsoil and we're good. I don't know, this is not my expertise.
You guys are saying the well's going in next week? I mean, if you're getting,
That's not that property, that's not that property.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, if the top is hot, and you guys are.
It's the wrong, you're talking about the wrong
It's
property.
a different whole property.
Okay, I'm just asking, you don't have to get, I'm just asking.
But it's the property owner who has to go through and get.
Because he's talking about, I'm saying it's
It's an
different.
easement that is associated with the main property.
Right.
The well is far away, it's over
It
by
is,
the owner's
okay.
lounge, it's several hundred feet away from this particular location. It's my recommendation that we have to engage the DNR, and I wish that we would have been able to do that right directly after the samples were taken in the early part of September, so that we wouldn't be sitting here at the 11th hour trying to not delay you guys in getting occupancy. But it is what it is. We have to engage the DNR, disclosure has to be made.
Says you.
I
Says the
agree.
laws of the state of Wisconsin.
They're the regulatory authority over this kind of thing. It's not village ordinances, it's them. I don't,
just get what you're, they know that was scraped off, so they assume that when it's scraped off, yeah, there was some contamination. They didn't say nothing about doing anything else about it. They just said how to get rid of it.
can we have a conversation with them? Can we meet them on site?
Do whatever you want.
I mean, I think that's what we're asking, right? Have a conversation, see if they have all the information, see if what their determination was.
Sure.
This is
Up
not
to you.
I can't provide the village with any
I
assistance.
understand what happened here. I mean, they, scraped the road,
Mm-hmm.
sent the samples out for inspection, they came back. They contacted the DNR with the report and said, what do we do? They laid out 3 options for them, they chose to have it hauled off site. Hasn't happened yet, but it's going to.
So, no,
If we have to get the DNR involved in this, I would suggest us going through the same person that's already familiar with the case.
Absolutely.
so I sent over the soil samples to Joe Martinez. Sent over the data sheet from PSI, said this is what happened. He sent the email back, I'm happy to forward it to the entire staff. If there was any type of issues from him, do you think he would have said something other than just said, here's option 1, 2, or 3?
I do, I just haven't seen any of that. I
Okay,
mean, that was kind of.
This might be as simple as a phone call
It might
tomorrow
be.
morning to Mr. Martinez and saying,
Yeah.
hey, we're good to go.
He understands this,
We
this,
don't have
and
to
this,
cover
and-
anything, we don't have to, it's just gonna get trucked off site and we're done.
okay.
It could be that simple, and I hope it is.
I would recommend that someone from the village staff level also be in touch with the DNR so that we can establish contact as well. Maybe a conference call would be in order. Because if it's a call and it's not a written thing, then we need to be involved with it to make sure that our interests are protected as well.
I think that's what Warren was suggesting, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow the call, like
Fine.
Natalie on it or something representing.
Yeah, I would like something from the DNR. It's not my expertise.
Sure. Okay,
So as to 5A, right now, we're not talking about doing any occupancy prior to full resolution of the contaminated soils issue. Is that right?
And again, I just want to confirm that 5A in the developer's agreement was based on the 3 samples taken in the retention pond. This does not specify the sampling that was taken on the dump property. This specific 5A was those 3 test sites on the Lake Park Storage Condo Facility site, not the dump site. So again, to hold up us getting approval over the dump site, I think is ridiculous, but, again, we can have that conversation with the DNR.
Yeah, you make a good point. That is actually
That
exactly what it
was,
says.
yes,
It's soil sampling and analysis of the material taken out at those three points.
and that's less than
And that all
50
came out clean.
feet, and that's less than 50 feet from the road.
It did.
So
Yeah,
again-
that was that goes back to what was the assumption that the surface was not contaminated where the road was going, that was minimal excavation. So that, I mean, all of that was this hindsight. I mean, I think, you know, we have to take into account new, you know, consider new information when we get it.
Right, no, I do think the new issue has to come into play.
I'm happy to address it. What I'm saying is it shouldn't hold up anything on the Lake Park development because it wasn't in the developer's agreement in any way, shape, or form. The dump property was not, it was approved by the DNR to put the road in. We put the road in. I did the soil samples under my own goodwill as a recommendation. I was not mandatory to do it. And now this came up. Yes, it's hindsight, but it in no way, shape, or form affects the developer's agreement for the Lake Park storage site.
Well,
Except it does under the easement agreements on that road that's
under
going
B
through
it
it.
might.
That's your main access point into the site.
But again, I'm happy to get the DNR touch base and do what we gotta do.
Yeah, so why don't we jump down to B?
Okay.
And take that up. Where are we at in terms of completing the construction of that road to the plan spec required pre-occupant by the time occupancy is given?
Jamin said it's ready for inspection, so we haven't had someone out there doing a construction inspection in a while, so I have to send, you know, someone out to do that. We could do that next week.
So it would be, according to this agreement, it says minimum 8 inches, inch and a half, all of that's met. 3-foot shoulders, the entirety of that will be ready for inspection? Okay.
I mean, because it is just paved, we're doing the 3-foot shoulders and everything as one layer, correct? I mean, you can't do asphalt milling road.
We do have kind of like an interim and then the paving and shoulder completion by a different date.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're gonna expect that will be completed to spec and inspected and approved by the village engineer before occupancy. Paragraph C is about the gravel drive from 164 to Big Bend Road. Sounds like it is complete to spec, but hasn't been inspected yet by the village engineer.
Right, C?
Top dressing.
No, they're doing top dressing by November 8th, and then it will be ready for inspection.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
that's in November 8th.
Complete and code compliant abandonment of the existing wells. You're confident that you're gonna have the paperwork on that prior to occupancy?
100%, yep.
Does that require certified inspection? I ask because I just don't know.
No,
Okay.
does not. I've done my own well abatements as the owner, you can do your own actually.
You just have to, there's a form you gotta fill out. And
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what the IDNR thing is it would just be the form?
Yep.
Okay.
Item E is the dumpster enclosure pad. Is the village willing to forego having the dumpster concrete pad placement and construction fencing installed at this time? Are you willing to just defer it open-ended to some future place and time?
I think as long as you're gonna have a construction dumpster sitting in the middle of, you know, the development, does it make sense to have an enclosed one too while you're on, you know, currently building? The whole point behind the enclosure is to hide the eyesore. You can't hide the eyesore if you're actively constructing.
Correct.
Just my opinion.
Well, not only that, but if we put the dumpster corral up, we put the fence up, there's still construction, we're not gonna get to the landscaping this year. We're gonna be landscaping around it, there's very high likelihood that somebody's gonna damage it. It's just, I'm not trying to do work twice is what it
Right,
comes
I
down to.
understand. What are the odds of putting it where it was originally designed at the end of the day?
I think we're gonna
I like
have,
what you said, after the septic's in, and then you can pour a slab over that, and,
I think we could shift it back like 10 feet to be more like centered with the building to allow that little bit of extra space. I don't foresee that being a problem.
okay.
So you want to push that back then to making it a requirement of phase 2 occupancy?
Yeah,
I'm asking the commission.
oh,
I think that's reasonable considering what's been said, again, you know.
Right.
Again, it has to come through here, proof of where that new location is gonna be, make sure that we're all fine with that, but if it in theory turns out the way that you're talking, then that's really not that big a deal. Since there's already a dumpster on site for them to use, and.
Right, I think the only stipulation you gotta say is, you know, I guess ultimately it falls on your shoulders if your tenants are just throwing garbage
Sure,
around the
then you deal with
dumpster.
that.
you
right,
know.
right.
So gotta be cleaned up.
I think that I would really like to see it's suggested here to request a month to figure out a new location. I'd really like to be able to put that into official writing to say that we have that figured out. I don't want this to be,
I'm gonna say I'm figuring it out right now. We're gonna push it back, if we could push it back 10 feet from where it's existing located, I'm completely good with that.
If we give them till phase 2, that gives them way more than a month to figure it out.
I just don't want it pushed off and pushed off and pushed off until it's at the end of the project and we got no place to put it.
It's not going to be so far back that it's closer to the south lot line than the building, right?
No, and we've got, in the landscape plan, that's all planted behind there, so we would just shift the plants then. Behind, you know, just move everything back, so it would still be planted behind and everything. Yep.
If everybody's satisfied with that, paragraph F is about the gating and fencing that would normally have been required to be installed by now, by occupancy on that 164 leg of drive. Are you willing to accept that Jamin suggests hold off installing the gate until phase 2 site work is completed? Do you mean site work or do you mean building construction?
No site work.
Okay. And in the meantime, he would install 2 concrete blocks with a chain across to keep owners from using that emergency exit, but be able to open it for construction vehicles if needed. Is public safety still gonna be able to get in with those construction blocks and chains?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
As long as public safety's good with it,
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with.
Wasn't part of the reason that we were trying to get that done sooner than later was to relieve any type of construction traffic coming and going from 164 direct? Especially with the schools being in session?
Yeah, and
I believe we had a huge discussion about that.
the construction entrance was originally proposed up Edgewood,
Correct.
was where it was showing up.
Well, and I can tell you that probably thus far, 95% of the construction vehicles have entered through 164. And I'm assuming there's been no complaints of mud, there's been no complaints of traffic. Again, that's not ideal, optimal, but the way that we're running construction through there, especially like when we're pouring a slab and we're requiring 18 cement trucks, it works out very well for them to come in, stage, and then exit out of Edgewood. That's really what I'm looking for in that heavier equipment, so that they're not turning around in there, they're going in one way and out the other.
I don't think, did we ever discuss that at a village staff level of allowing construction traffic to come in off of 164?
No, I mean, I don't, well, it was always proposed to be off of Edgewood. We talked about it's always gonna be off Edgewood, and I would have to look back at the DOT response to the plan set. I know they had some comments about using the access up to 164, but I don't recall if it mentioned construction or not. But that was where it was always intended, was to be off Edgewood. I
I
mean,
just
it
know
has
the
been kept
concerns that's
clean.
going on with the school and with traffic flow. It's sending a lot of heavy construction traffic out into that general site location, which is why we said in the first place that we weren't
To
going
have
to
it
allow
off.
access off of 164. Whenever you say through phase 2, Jamin, what type of a date, time frame are we looking at for that?
Again, I'm just trying to get all the heavy equipment work done, so phase 2 site work, once that's done. So again, next, probably mid to late next spring. I watch how these guys move around in here with semis and dump trucks and cement trucks, and we put up a, $5,000 gate and somebody actually backs into it. I just, again, try not to pay for things twice.
Right.
I think I'm okay with putting up the concrete blocks and chain, but I'm a little bit opposed about allowing construction traffic to continue through that entrance and exit way.
I guess I go both ways on that, because do you really want to mix construction traffic, like he says, 18 cement mixers coming in with some, for lack of a better term, HVAC guy, loading his van and pulling his stuff in and out and, dealing with the public on a narrower, more restrictive area.
Well, to get to phase 2 or phase 1 part 2, you're going to have to go past the entranceway that would be right there by that building anyway, coming from 164. It's going to,
Right, but if you have them going in and out in, one solid traffic pattern, rather than trying to get them to turn around and go back out on Edgewood. And you already told the customers or the tenants that they cannot use 164.
Correct.
So now you have mixed use traffic. I don't know. I'm just throwing some ideas out there for
When
everybody to ponder.
some of the units hit occupancy and there's still.
I'm assuming some will have that before winter.
Well, I mean, I have not heard any complaints as far as debris on the roads.
I've heard nothing from,
I haven't asked
and I just
Public
talked to
Works.
Principal Waller the other day.
I haven't asked Public Works directly how they feel about it. It was intended to be off Edgewood, I do recall that. Unless DOT has had an issue with that access, I guess.
I think there's more issues with school traffic and construction traffic along 164 for the fiber optics than there is, I mean, honestly,
It's such a limited basis. Again, they come in and pour a slab. We've had 3 slabs poured, so that's 3 days.
yeah, when you have a slab poured, they're in, and then when they drop off building supplies, they're in.
Correct.
It's not like a parade of trucks every day.
Yes, it's a very minimal, but I just want to have that accessibility. And again, it's not even so much the accessibility putting up the gate is getting it damaged during the construction process if we do put it up.
so would the construction traffic coming off of 164 be confined to only like large things like concrete trucks and delivery trucks? Not necessarily your day-to-day construction people coming and going?
Whatever you guys prefer. Like I said, nobody would have known the difference. If I had, I wouldn't have said anything, because,
I didn't know the difference until he brought it up. I didn't know anybody was coming and going off of there.
right, so why is it an issue then?
Because
You know
now
what
it's
I
been
mean?
brought forth, and I'm just simply throwing it out there because we have official concerns from the, Edgewood, Big Bend Elementary about traffic flow through that area.
Right. But again, like I said,
And that's
if
been
it's not an
brought forth
issue, it's
to
not
us
an
in
issue.
Is there a way that we could give them like a temporary, see how it goes for a month or so, and if the complaints pick up or we have issues, we could come back and reassess at the next planning commission?
I'm more than happy to just chain it shut and let nobody in there. Like I said, it's not a matter of the construction traffic so much as it is, I don't want the gate damaged during construction. We gotta shut it off completely, whatever, doesn't matter.
Up to, not just me, it's up to you guys, whatever you want.
Just let it roll until you get a complaint. And once you get a complaint, then shut it
I
down.
mean, I went out and bought a
We haven't
street
had one,
sweeper,
so-
anytime there's rain or mud, we street sweep immediately. I mean, we're very diligent, like I said, you wouldn't know if you didn't know.
I haven't seen anything out on the roads.
Right.
Nothing on
I was gonna
Edgewood.
say,
It's
if
been
it's
really
not,
Nothing
good.
on
if
164.
it's not
And we
an
know,
issue,
and we've known previously, people from like woodchuckers, how quickly we got complaints and feedback related to them,
Right.
Exactly.
so.
Yeah, I guess I'm okay with it.
I mean, it can be,
Until when? I just wanna be able to.
Till the site work is done.
I would say the major excavation of phase 2, which would be,
Excavation,
which is scheduled for spring,
Are you calling phase 2 everything on the north side?
correct?
Everything,
Yes,
okay. So the earthwork of phase 2,
the earthwork of phase 2.
but not the pouring of the slabs?
Well, again, I'm not trying to push the issue, I would prefer that be the case, but I also don't want to push the issue.
Okay. So I'll look for somebody to give me clarification, so I can document it.
Leave it as the site prep work for phase 2, which may include pouring slabs.
but also can be reviewed if we start to get complaints.
Right.
Right, correct, continue as is.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah, no harm, no foul.
If it continues nice and quiet and no issues in the school or otherwise, then
Maintained as is.
And Bill, you're good with the 2 concrete blocks and a chain?
Yes.
He's got it over there.
No problem.
When they're not using it. Good, thanks.
Paragraph G, the septic system and the well have to be fully installed under proper licensing. Until that's done, I can't picture that we're going to give occupancy.
So my point on this is, again, everybody's behind. These buildings were stubbed for water and bathrooms. None of the first 4 units have bathrooms. They only have water and floor drains. The floor drains drain into holding tanks that were installed. And the water is only a slop sink, basically. So what I was getting at is, if the septic isn't installed, we wouldn't energize the water. The water's not being energized for the owner's lounge because that's being finished off this winter. So I'd still be looking for occupancy or approval to let the units get occupied, and we would just not activate the water, so there'd be no water, which means they can't use the septic. Again, I know there's certain houses, last year I did a job for one in Big Bend that they couldn't put the septic in. The guy was already moved in, and they were just running off of his holding tank because the septic guy couldn't get in there. I know 2 houses, I think in Ripplebrook Court, that I did the landscape at.
I don't think well, I talked to Jason about this, Crony, building inspector, and we're both in agreement that, if utilities are part of the unit, they should be in working order before occupancy. I mean, I don't, so we say, okay, you can sell the unit, you can find a buyer, and that person comes in and wants to get occupancy. I'd be inclined to say, no way, I mean, you gotta have maybe someone working out of there, they need to use the bathroom. I mean, you think you're getting water and you think you're getting septic, and you have none of those utilities.
Well, there is no bathrooms in it. And they
Well, they
wouldn't, and they can't get a permit from Jason if there's no septic for the bathrooms. You know what I mean?
So why are we going forward then? I mean, can't we wait until that's ready and then have it be ready for occupancy?
What do you
If they
mean?
can't get a building permit.
They can't get a building permit for the bathroom part, because I'm sure everybody's gonna have to get their own building permit to put a bathroom in there, because they're just stubbed, right? So they can't get a bathroom
Until it's
permit
inspected.
until it's inspected. So,
I see that being a big argument then with the building inspector.
And the buyer.
And
Do we
Well-
have plumbing plans?
I got some today. I got some plans today that show the services for both the water and the sewer. So, I need to look at those. I got them around 4 o'clock. But I did receive those today.
Wow. It's going to holding tanks?
The
Not
floor
to the sewer?
drains. You can't, we don't have sewer. You're not allowed to, by Wisconsin DNR code, you're not allowed to run floor drains into a septic system. So in order to have floor drains, you have to have holding tanks. So per building, we put holding tanks in for the floor drains, and then the slop sink, and when the bathrooms are built, will go into the septic.
So the holding tanks would then be pumped out and
Right.
taken off site whenever they're full?
Yes.
Is that anything that we ever discussed?
It's beyond my wheelhouse.
I remember the holding
More
tank
of a-
conversation.
That's pretty normal
It was approved
practice.
by the, that
Everything's
was
gonna
approved
be
by the.
plumbed into the septic. We asked.
You
if
can't
it's-
No,
plumb a floor
can't-
tank.
It's heavy metal, so often vehicles, you can't do that.
Because of the use of potential use.
So on these first couple buildings, was there
Mhm.
plans for bathrooms?
Yes.
Okay.
State approved plans.
Yeah, but they're just stuck in, they're not finished.
They're not working.
They're not working toilets.
Yeah,
They're not working bathrooms, but there's a slop sink.
I
Basically, the owner that bought the first 4 units
Mhm.
is renting those units out to tenants.
Okay.
He wanted the floor, or he wanted the water stubbed, but he didn't want to put the bathrooms in. So if he wants, tenants want to pay to have the bathrooms installed, then either they pay for it or he adds it to the rent or whatever the case may be.
Got it. And so that's where your argument is that since they're stubbed, they'd have to come back for a permit to actually
Right.
finish them off.
Correct.
And at that time could be
Correct.
confirming that they're hooked up to the septic properly, et cetera.
Correct.
I gotcha.
So he's not gonna issue a permit to put a bathroom in if there's no septic, right?
It changed the whole dynamic of everything too, knowing that the owner of the first 4 units is not inhabiting them,
Correct.
that he is renting them, or he or she is renting them out. It doesn't matter to him what amenities are in there.
Correct. And seeing how he owns them, he has to approve them to the tenants, which again would have to go through us.
I was assuming, I guess, that you were selling individual units to Chris, Tony, and Kelly, and Mary. And
Well, we did,
how
but
the
then
heck are
Chris
they
might
gonna
wanna rent
secure-
his out or something, you
How
know?
are they gonna secure a loan from a bank on an unfinished unit?
You know what?
You
These
know,
guys
not
are paying
knowing-
all cash for them, so it's crazy.
Right, that's why I said, if you got an owner that's not inhabiting them and renting them out,
Right.
he can do what he wants, you know, at that point. He
Right.
doesn't even have to rent them out, he can just give you the money and sit.
Right, exactly. So the whole premise behind this is that these units are already spoken for, and that owner already has tenants ready and lined up to get into this building. That's why I'm pushing the issue.
And it's probably a moot point anyhow, because
I
the
mean,
septic's is supposedly supposed to be in by the 15th, as long as the people can get in, the companies can get in to do it.
Right,
So this is probably just, like, it's a total moot point,
right.
but we're just,
Let's get the
you know,
septic in and then it's in. My concern is too that. if
You let me
the
know if you
septic
can get
starts
somebody
going
over there to
in-
get it in.
If the septic is going in and it doesn't fit, or it needs to be adjusted or anything, then we're going to have to discuss where the septic's going to have to go.
It's
Just like
approved,
that.
it's 100% done, it just has to be installed.
and that's all the county.
So was the pad for the waste.
That's all county that's with the septic, nothing to do with you guys.
Yeah.
You can't determine how big a septic system you put in there.
Yeah.
The
I
county
didn't
does
say
that.
anything about how big it was, I just said if it was going to be able to be located where it was first said to be located.
That's where it's gonna be located, it's the only place, and that was approved by the county.
We had to
also.
have a permit to get it located there.
Well, then let's get the septic in. Just a big deal.
Do you
I
know
can't
what,
find a
have
contract.
you lived in 2020 or you lived in some fantasy world?
Do you just want to keep
There's,
ripping on me?
no,
Do you
I'm
wanna
just
keep
saying,
ripping on me?
I'm telling you,
Let-
if you see
Let's go back. on-
everything, there's nothing. You can't get nothing done nowadays. It's ridiculous.
It's not my worry for that.
Of course it isn't.
Let's get back at the item at hand, or the task at hand, please.
So again, my point being, we're working on it, it's scheduled. The well is supposed to have been in for 3 weeks. Every week I call, I email, yeah, it'll be in this week, we'll get it in this week, they don't show up. Next week I call, I email, yeah, it's coming in this week. Oh, the rain pushed us off, it was supposed to be in this week. They guaranteed that it was going in next Wednesday. Will it? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know.
We could grant you the ability to do what you need to do, and you could still be sitting until the middle of December without well and septic,
Right.
because it's out of your control.
Exactly. This whole point of this was trying to be a little bit proactive, that if we could get all these ducks in a row, that some of the items, mostly like the dumpster enclosure, the gate, now the spoils for that stuff that isn't necessarily specifically affecting that first building, that's what I'm looking for. Most of the stuff on this list will be done by November 15th.
So are you agreeing then to allow occupancy of the units, even if the septic system hasn't been installed, or the well?
I vote no for that. I think it's important because that's a major infrastructural move that has to be done. And until it's in, and we can make sure that we have that proper paperwork from the county and from the state. I'm not confident. But that's just me. Everyone else?
It's a tough one, for sure.
I see the landlord of those first 4 units fighting a huge battle. That's not our concern here. But I mean, you're renting it out, you got people that don't have septic and well. that
And I guess the big
that
thing
they're
is,
paying rent on, they're gonna be upset.
I can't close on it, which means I'm not getting money for it until it's, until
Right.
they can move in, and then he can't get rent. Again, we're writing these offers to purchase, and if we're falling short of these contracts, it's not your problem, no, but we had a schedule that we thought we were gonna be able to meet.
And they did not promise the renters bathrooms by any stretch. None of them even ordered them or put in a reservation to have one built. He's just renting them out as they are. So really, there is no bathrooms. There are no doors, there's nothing. There's a stub in the floor.
So I said that changed the whole dynamic when you said you had a cash buyer that, the bank doesn't care. And if you're renting,
Right.
that's between you and the landlord,
Right.
What concerns us is the Petersons and their development.
Does the septic affect not just the first 4 buildings, but the rest of the first phase?
So buildings 1, 2, and 3 all have water and bathrooms, but those aren't done, and I can guarantee the septic will be done before the second building's done. That I can guarantee.
Right. I guess it's just I think the concern is that if the septic's not at 100% and signed off on, we're granting you occupancy for those it's kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Let's not use.
But again, you have a lot of control over that because they're not gonna issue any permits to put bathrooms in if there's not a septic.
Each tenant of each unit has to come in front of the planning commission and
For-
petition
Get approval.
for further use.
Right,
Whatever
and
we're
to
using
get
it for.
permits from the
Yes,
building
yeah.
inspector.
And if they want water and septic, if they wanna put a bathroom in, it's gotta be done before we're gonna grant anything.
Right. But are we just blurring this, because this is the developer's agreement, and this was agreed upon, and now we're saying that it really doesn't apply?
Well, that comes out later, under number 12 with the permitted uses, that each individual tenant has to come before us.
Right, but I'm saying the septic unit was supposed to be put in, just like all these things were supposed to be met, part of our developer's agreement, and now we're just saying, well, it really doesn't apply, or doesn't affect us. Well, it does, we made the decision, this is part of it.
It was agreed upon previously.
So, it involves us directly, and it's what we agreed upon, so I think we're making lighter of it than what we should be. It's a big deal.
Can you sell a house with the plumbing stubbed to the floor in the bathrooms and no toilet on it?
is that even a good comparison? Nobody's gonna live in these things, you're living in a house.
Well, no, but I mean, you're
You
gonna-
can
you're gonna
stub a
transfer
base,
ownership of
you
this
can
thing.
stub a basement bathroom and get occupancy and have it set up exactly as we have it set up and everything be there, but the bathroom not be in and installed.
But the system is, but the pipe is connected to an operating system,
Right, correct.
right? So if somebody runs to Menards, backs the car up to the garage, hauls the stool in and sets it down and starts using it, there's an active
They-
system on the other end of the
They
pipe.
can't do that, there's no water turned on.
Well, we got that issue too, we gotta have a well. I mean,
Again, we're not saying we're not gonna put this stuff in, we're saying that they're not being used in the first 4 units. Therefore, they will go in as soon as we can get a contractor to get them in.
I'm gonna go the other way with this one. Let's pretend we approve all of this tonight and say, yeah, it's great. And your first tenant is here November 18th, looking for approval.
Mhm.
And they've got a plan that shows water, septic, the whole schmear.
Then they can't get an occupancy permit for that specific unit.
Right.
Assuming it's not done by the.
Right, well, that's what I'm asking, you know, what if it's not done? What, if, you know,
this kind of takes us back to the original question I asked, and that is, what do you mean by overall occupancy? We mean the building inspector signing off that everything is complete?
Yes.
No.
But
Well,
he can't sign off on that until there's a septic and a well in place.
I mean, it's precedent.
That would be like signing off on a house, that you've completed all the requirements of construction, except that you don't have your septic and well in.
I guess the whole thing with these units are, there is no bathrooms in them. They're just stubbed for a bathroom. So there cannot be a bathroom in there until there's a septic. So they're not gonna come and ask you for occupancy with a bathroom because there's no bathroom.
Is that recorded on the plumbing plans that were submitted today? Do we know?
No.
Because it came in at 4 o'clock. I guess we wouldn't, right?
I don't know, I honestly didn't, I don't know, I saw that they were some lights on them.
But up to this point, Naomi, what have we seen so far for the plumbing plans for that building? Because it changed a couple of times already, right?
This is the first plumbing plan I've seen.
Oh. Okay. Weren't we supposed to have that, like, originally?
We asked for it, right, an initial approval.
Back in April, May? It's October?
Did at one point then we also say though that the plumbing was not with you guys, it's with the building inspector?
It is, but
Do you
we-
remember that conversation or no?
Yeah, I do remember that. They sign off on it.
Yeah.
And what we do from the village perspective is we verify separation. So separation from the storm sewer, separation, the potable water source has to be separated from the dirty water source.
Mhm.
And that's what we asked the plans to provide so we could verify the separation. It overlaps a little, but you got approval from the county.
Is what you provided today show that separation?
Yes. And again, that's just strictly from septic to buildings, and that's not underfloor or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
I know you haven't reviewed it, but I'm
Right.
asking him if that data's there to review, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
And the reason that I hadn't submitted that is, and we went through this 100 times, is nobody would do this. I've asked for recommendations, like I had to draw this in myself. It's not done by an engineer. I asked CJ Engineering, I asked everybody, I asked my plumbers, nobody would do a drawing for the sewer laterals in the water.
So that wasn't done by an engineer, that was,
No, I took a highlighter and highlighted it on the site
Are
plan.
these,
that's not good.
yeah, are these pipes, I mean, some of them are in, right? Because you said it's
None of
still
them
no.
are in.
Okay, those are being put in with the septic.
Yes, correct. The sewer laterals and the water's all being bored in from building to building.
Am I
we're
correct that those
gonna-
plans need to be done by a certified individual?
Yeah, we usually get them from a civil engineer.
Find me somebody, and I've been talking about
Were
this for the
you
last
gonna
8 months.
as-build this?
Yeah,
And the as-bills will be done by,
I talked to the septic guy about these laterals, everybody laughed at me, these guys are like, I'm not doing a drawing for this, we put it in, the depths of the pipes are set at the building, and then we determine how much pitch we can put on, and that's the depth of the septic tank before it goes
the
to the.
as-bills will be done by CJ engineer?
Well, I don't know that they can do an as-built for bored water lines, I mean, how do you monitor that on a site map? I mean, the laterals are easy, we know where they're going, those are being marked with wire, but when they bore in the water lines. Again, I've tried 3 different septic people, I even called the septic guy and offered,
Didn't Vince Boudiak give you a recommendation of a?
yeah, I called him and he laughed at me. He's like, I don't do this. 3 different engineers, we don't do this.
As far as the pre-work, obviously the as-built is different.
Because again, the problem is like, the plumbers, when they do the site work, they set the heights under the concrete. So if they go through and set actual heights, once you get to the laterals, they may change.
Do you have tracer wire
The,
laterals?
they're not in yet, they're going
Well,
in.
will you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tracer wires will be in with the laterals.
All right, well, I mean, I can take a look at the plans. I mean, my concern is the spacing and, the brief look that I looked at it, there were, water main was crossing storm sewer at a couple locations, so we can just talk through that and
Correct.
see what we can verify. Maybe we're out doing an inspection at the time.
I mean, what, just out of curiosity, like what's the, like how much separation do they need? And what's the
There's a
reason for
vertical
separation?
Because one is dirty water, one is clean water, and there's water over sewer, and then there's sewer over water, and they have different separation requirements. Now, I'm not gonna say them right now, because I'm gonna mix them up. But
Gotcha,
I can send you the code.
okay,
One's 6 inches and one's 18 inches.
gotcha.
I'm not gonna, I always get it screwed up when I try to.
So what are we gonna tell Damon has to happen here?
Packers are tied,
At what,
7-7.
at the time that the occupancy request comes in, and you did see, or you got in your packets, the application form that we created to use for the Lake Park Storage condo exclusively, just to kind of streamline that process a little bit. So before any one of those occupancies is given to a unit that has sewer and water connection plan, the septic and the well have to be in. Is that what we're saying?
For units that have bathrooms or are stubbed for bathrooms?
Are stubbed for bathrooms, that either have them or have stubs to the building, to the unit, in order to have them.
So the septic and well have to be in before anybody moves into any building?
I feel like that's a bare minimum. I truly, you can imagine somebody setting a stool over that stub, and
It's capped off. And if there's no water running to it, I mean, that's
I mean, some of this stuff is really a stretch of what you're saying.
Yeah. I am definitely.
It's not like
My
a great big,
wheelhouse.
there's 4 little buildings there that are gonna be controlled very much by the owner. The owner's not gonna let them go through a toilet in there and go to pot and with no water.
I really doubt that owner's ever going to come take a look at the place.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very big part of this plan of ours. Yeah, he's the one that's been at all the meetings.
If I
See-
rent places out, I wouldn't go check it out every day, or every other day, or every week, or every month.
Well, Tony, you wouldn't do that, no, but he does. You know,
I'll trust you, Brad.
he's our real estate guy. He's selling all the units. That's what he's getting paid to do. He'll be there every single day.
I think it just comes down to, right now, it's a time thing. If you guys wanna get the septic and water in, but you just can't find someone to
That's
get
exactly
it, but
what
then
it
you
is.
want us to grant you the exemption to get occupancy.
Approval.
Now, we gotta stop using the word occupancy, because that doesn't apply to
Approval for,
extreme.
It had nothing to do with us.
Occupancies for the tenants.
Well, I also don't wanna mix, like, I want this building approved that tenants can move into. They still need to get occupancy, but I don't
Right,
want
yeah,
you
we
guys to
can't prove anybody
reword
moving
it.
in.
Right,
There is absolutely no approval on move-in. We're approving you to sell 4 units maybe.
Okay.
If that's what you're looking at.
yes.
Now, the guy's gonna buy 4 units, all 4 tenants gotta come in here before they put,
Well, they don't have to come in, again, per the developer's agreement, depending on what they're utilizing these for, they don't all have to come in front of the planning commission. If it's, in the developer's agreement, if it's hobbyists, all they
Yeah,
have to do
get
is
staff
submit,
approval.
it's staff approval.
Right.
Right.
Staff's not gonna give approval.
we're not gonna give approval on
Septic and
anything
well
that,
aren't in.
that's not a complete building.
All the laterals are not in, none of the laterals are in. So if we have the units occupied, or people are using them, even though they're not using the feature of the water and the septic, they're in and out and around, and all this infrastructure is not put in yet.
Nothing's in front of these buildings, everything's stubbed. Yeah.
I mean, it
I-
really complicates it,
Right.
as far as
You
getting
understand
it
what we're
finished.
saying?
I do,
We
I do.
can give you permission to
So,
sell those 4 units to the landlord. There ain't no way any tenant's gonna get any occupancy rights until they're ready to go.
But see, that saves us a lot of time by it being able to sell them. You know what I mean? There's a lot of time in between.
I
They move
understand
in
what you're
and,
asking for, absolutely.
and if we lose this potential buyer because of certain things, well, you know what? Then I guess you did your job. I mean, I think you guys already had your mind made before we came in here, so we just wasted an hour and a half of the Packer game.
Well, maybe it's
I don't
not
think-
the
I don't-
village's.
I don't think that's
I don't think that's
appropriate
fair
to
at
say.
all.
I
That's
mean,
not fair.
we have a developer's agreement here, and you guys are trying to modify it after we agreed to it, so I mean, that's the issue here.
And the
Well,
developer's
exactly.
agreement also says that the planning commission and the board have have the availability to modify the
Right,
developer's agreement.
and I would understand
under
minor
discussion.
things, landscaping, stuff like that, that's weather permitted, but, I mean, we're looking at something significant here, which is the septic system and water. I mean, that's a big selling feature for your condos.
Okay, let me ask you this.
So we could say, okay, well, remove the septic, remove the water, these units are dry, they have nothing in it then. What does that do for your value? That's
There's-
something you're trying to sell.
They're
is that
storage
feature.
units, we're not selling them as potty places.
Let me ask you this, if those 4 units didn't have,
That's
weren't
correct.
stubbed for water, and the septic and well was only needed for the owner's lounge, and the other 4 units were completely finished off, and I told you that the owner's lounge wouldn't be completed until February 30th, 29th, whatever, 28th, would you guys still allow those tenants to move into those units? See what I'm saying?
I think the development agreement probably would reflect that differently.
Yeah. It would reflect them as
Realistically,
being
I
dry.
think
your
that's a
verbiage
little
would be
different
differently.
scenario.
But I understand your scenario, but I think that would be handled differently in the development.
Why are we under such a critical time frame? Why is the village being put in the position of having to try and adapt
Because if we don't get these sold, we're gonna lose out on these 4 units.
How did you get into a contract that locked you down so tight?
We didn't.
That you couldn't modify it if the septic.
We didn't, but he is. We didn't get into the contract, but he is in the position where he could do that. Pull out.
You gotta, what I'm saying is you're putting the monkey on the village's back,
Yeah,
but the
it's-
monkey's
We're not
on
putting
your
it on
back to
your,
go
we're
back to
not, we're
this.
not. We're asking for a little bit of help, a little bit of leeway is all we ask for. We're not asking for the moon. We're not asking for hardly anything. If you guys don't wanna do it, just say you're not gonna do it.
It's a big list.
Well,
It's a big list. It's not very small, you know, it's not minor things, it's a substantial list and it's some major components.
And again, had this been approved 2 or 3 months earlier in spring, like we had hoped, then this wouldn't be an issue because we would be on schedule.
But you can't hold it against the village for them to do their due diligence.
you know what,
You know, I'm so disappointed with the village in general over this whole project, and I've discussed this with Warren 150 times. Steve, the guy who's buying these 4 units, is doing this exact same development in Waterford. 1 meeting, 100% approval, done. 1 month. I did close to 14 months of meetings and close to about $25,000 in staffing fees with the village of Big Bend to get this approved. So again,
But
Is the situation exactly the same
Let me
here?
ask, exactly, I was just gonna say, just to be like critical thinking, to look at both sides of the argument. The developments you're building in Waterford, are they building it on top of an old landfill?
this isn't being built on a
there's nothing to do
landfill.
with the landfill.
But there's an easement for it,
Well, there wasn't in the beginning.
Yes or no?
that's the question.
You're building it on a clean lot,
Okay.
no hot soil?
No, none.
At the Waterford site?
No, I'm talking about this side. There's
Well,
no.
but you
They're,
say.
they're not doing the Waterford site, the other guy is.
But I mean.
It's a moot point, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter,
we
you guys
sit there and
don't
go,
We're
care.
not, I mean, I don't
Can
think
you
we're trying to
access
hold
the
it up
site by
on
2
purpose.
off-site easements?
You know what?
It's otherwise a landlocked site.
You know, we could have fought for
Site
164 too. We could have fought for 164. We were trying to be, we all came to the agreement it'd be better off of Edgewood. You know, that wasn't our first choice. But we tried to give a little bit too. You know, this is probably the biggest tax revenue that this village is gonna have. For right now, the biggest. There's 42, basically 42 separate homes that are there, that are on $200,000, which is more than half the homes in Big Bend cost.
They're not homes though.
Exactly. You don't have to do
Storage
any,
units.
right, you don't have, so they're gonna get, the tax rate's gonna be up there. You don't have to do any plowing, you don't have to do any,
Nobody
garbage
goes to
pickup. There's no school, I mean, it's a win-win for you guys, and all you do is fight all the way.
It's not fighting.
Well, okay, well, you know, it is what it is.
I haven't raised my voice once.
No, it doesn't, you don't have to raise your voice to fight, Warren. You just gotta look at certain people. That's been against it from the very beginning. Because he lives wherever they live.
So you're taking out a personal vendetta against me?
Yeah, that's where we're building it, Tony. We're gonna build this $5 million thing over there just to
Let's
piss
get
you
back to
off.
the topic on hand, right? This is
There's no point, we
ridiculous,
might as
right?
well go. We don't,
Yeah, let's just, yeah.
most of the other stuff's a moot point if it really doesn't matter, so.
Can we run through just a couple of other points? It can be yes or no questions. Is there power to the building?
Next week.
Yeah, no, she just said that, what Jason said, right?
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah, well, like to see.
Okay, what about gas?
Next week.
So everything's next week?
It's always next week.
None of this ever matters. The electric or power or gas is none of your concern.
What?
It is.
It is, actually.
How is it?
It's on our developer's agreement, it's what we.
What is it, to have it done when we finish this up? No, the electric company isn't gonna even energize the thing until it's ready to be energized.
What about exterior siding? I know that was something that you brought up.
All of that stuff is, she just went down the developer's agreement. Half of this stuff wasn't stuff I was asking for. Mary just went down the developer's agreement and said, is this stuff done, is this stuff done, is this stuff done? By the time November 15th comes around, which is what we're looking to finish this, all of these things will be completed.
Okay.
The couple of items that I had asked for, the dumpster enclosure, the gates, again, now the fill on the site, those are the main issues. All of these other things shouldn't really have even been brought up. They will be done by the time we get to that point.
Is your guys' concern that the guy who's gonna buy the 4 sites is gonna pull out in the next 3 weeks?
It doesn't matter.
It does, because.
Well,
that's
evidently it
what-
does, because then we're putting the burden on you,
You guys
right?
are asking us to modify the developer agreement. that
Yeah,
you
there-
agreed
it's
to
a
because-
possibility,
But-
let's put it that
But
way.
no, but you're asking us, you're saying, hey, I wanna modify this, because if we don't, this guy's gonna pull out in the next 3 weeks. Is that what you're asking?
But when we said that before, you said you can't put that kind of burden on the village, so I'm not gonna even say that.
But I think that's what the crux of the argument is.
Well, there, it's a possibility, yeah.
I understand.
So I guess it's just benefiting us.
I can understand the challenges and stuff with trying to get stuff done. I mean, I've seen it every day right now. But you're telling me this guy is that invested in this project and he's gonna buy them and rent them out and he can't wait 3 more weeks till we get septic and water figured out? I mean,
He'll have to.
I,
It isn't even so much him as it is the people.
He's already waited, he already figured this was gonna be done way before this, and they weren't.
I can understand that.
And I'll tell you one of the reasons, Walter's Buildings. They can't get no help. We're supposed to have a crew, we got 2 guys building these things.
Believe me,
Well, evidently, some people don't understand, this is the way it is.
but I think that there's basic stuff as part of the agreement that was made, the septic and the water and things like that, that if it's close, if you guys are close, and besides, I mean, you guys are still gonna reach out to the DNR in the next day or so, right, tomorrow?
Well, we have to now.
Right, I
Well, I thought
mean,
you guys were gonna do it.
I was gonna say, I think Naomi is.
yeah, I mean,
I can do that if you provide, you wanna provide me with the communication and then we can have a phone call?
I mean, I wanna see you guys finish it out, I just wanna make sure we do our due diligence.
You know, at the end of the day, like, again, you guys have a bond with us for several $100,000. If this stuff isn't done, you know, you're looking at it as like, we're just trying to like rent out a half-built building and hope that you guys will just kind of forget about it and we can just go on with our day.
Right, but our bond doesn't cover septic, water,
Electricity.
anything like that. You know, the electrical, that's,
Doesn't cover any of that, and we can't use it for that. We can
Right.
only use it for what we.
we can only use it for the stormwater and road. Anyways. We'll look at the calendar.
I mean, look at the calendar, it'd be like, because we gotta talk about that also, about the next meeting would be the 18th, I would assume,
If we moved it up a week.
if we moved it up a week. So I mean, I would assume by then, by what they're quoting is that they'll have all this stuff done by then.
Everything
That
should be
the
complete.
high-end things that we are expecting would be possibly done.
I mean, we've already discussed.
Except for the septic that you guys said
Yeah,
we
we've
can't
already
get an
talked
answer.
about the relief on the gate and the dumpster. So hopefully the
And
septic will be in
landscaping.
by then.
I mean, that's all minor stuff. But the big thing is, you guys have a lot of infrastructure that's right there.
Well, right, and that, I would have never even brought 90% of that stuff up. It was
But, yeah.
just
But
brought
But
up.
it's still a punch
It's
list.
no different than going to a car dealer and buying a car and going, yeah, you can have the car, but I'm gonna give you the engine in 2 weeks.
Right.
I'm not signing that contract and neither are you. You know, even if you know the car dealer, it's not right. You need a complete package to move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about extreme exteriors in a village. I'm talking about all the moving parts, your owner, your tenants, and you and us.
Well, I think we're good to go then.
Yeah.
We don't need to waste any more
Yeah,
time.
it's good to see the village on our side and trying to make stuff happen and, yeah, it's good. I'm glad I'm building another $1 million house on the pond down there. That makes me real happy. I should sell that son of a bitch too.
So you're expecting to be ready for occupancy by the 15th?
Yes.
Okay. Schedule ahead of time all the inspections you need from various staff, because, you know, everybody's not gonna be able to just jump if you don't put it on the calendar now.
Because they're busy?
Yes,
Well, I know, that's what I mean, everybody's busy.
but if you ask me today, you know, can we come out and get that, you know, lighting architecture?
That's why I said November 8th on 90% of the things, basically saying I'll be ready for inspection on 90% of this stuff.
Okay, well, schedule it ahead of time, you know,
Okay.
be in touch and set it up a week ahead of time so that we don't end up having to, you know, jump out of our skin when you guys say we're ready.
Sounds good, yeah. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Don't even look at me, I'll knock you on your ass. You know I will.
Hey, but I'll get to you before you will get to me.
The old high school place.
Yeah.
Item 4B, I guess we have
Do
no,
we have to move on that at all, or?
no, we can table it till the next meeting,
Yeah.
if someone would want to move so.
Well, hang on, let's clarify that. Let's clarify that. So we gave them relief on the gate and the dumpster. There was
And the
consensus on
and the
that,
landscape.
and the landscaping due to the time of year.
Right,
So if the other things are done, he can still go for approval, not occupancy, approval from Jason.
right.
And we don't have any argument because everything's done, including the septic,
Correct.
right?
That's why that was my argument. Like,
That's what, I'm just clarifying,
You
so
guys
that,
are 3 weeks.
so there's no action needed.
No.
We gave him the relief in the couple areas that he needed relief, as long as he checks the boxes on all those other things, it can proceed, including the DNR call.
Yes.
For the landscaping, it shouldn't be a full kick to spring though. He needs to put down stabilization on the open soils because of winter if they're not going to be worked, correct? That would be the berms.
Defer to
that would
the
be
MS4 or
That's
whatever
stormwater.
support
I
there.
thought he did. He sent pictures over, I thought that was,
That's right, I mean, you get like 14 days after you're done. with
Yeah,
the
right.
stainless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't remember seeing anything down. There's nothing on,
yeah,
The
here.
Around the pond is
Around the
pretty
pond
good.
is
The
done.
pond is.
Yeah,
Oh, it
the
is?
pond is
Yeah.
really done, yeah.
that must have been done in the last day.
No, it's like.
It was
full.
pretty green.
Yeah.
No, that's not grass, the pond, it had grass for a while.
I just,
Pond.
He did that early on.
okay.
Yeah, he's been good at keeping up on his ground coverings.
And there was some silk fencing that was damaged, and he got on that pretty quick, and that was from like We Energies or somebody that.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing a great job with the erosion control.
I know that there was, in one of the emails from like 3 weeks ago, he was gonna put seed or some type of matting down on the berms that were open. I don't think he's done that yet.
Yeah, I'll check with Will on that, I know Will commented.
Yeah, I don't know if, are you talking about the side towards Lake Park?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know he said he was still working on those berms to shape them up and get them the right height and,
Yeah. I just don't want it to be open all winter if the final landscaping is not going on.
Agreed.
I'll
Well,
ask-
again, MS4 says if it's not, what, active
Yeah,
so much time,
we'll
it's
be
gotta
on
be
that.
covered.
14 days. I
Yeah,
believe.
so,
Yeah.
holding to that.
So, do we need any action on this, Mary?
I think you do need action.
I
If you're,
thought we might for
Yeah,
the,
if
for
it
the
was
items
Three
we
things or
approved.
4 things that were contingent, so to speak, on,
Yes.
or modifications, I should call it,
and
not
what are we
contingent.
doing with respect to the stormwater pond?
Yeah, did we get to that? I don't know.
No.
Did you see the picture?
I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of whether
Sure looks
it's
like
working.
there's plenty of water in there to meet. I mean,
Well, so there's a shelf?
Yeah, I saw that picture and I thought, well, it is holding.
There was an argument supposedly that there was rain in it before, but it evaporated quickly. Now there's
So
obviously
this is a
proof of
safety
a bunch
shelf,
of rain.
that should be underwater. That water should be up to here. That should be lined with clay.
I don't think we've had that much rain.
I know, that's right.
I mean, we've literally had an inch of rain in the last month.
Yep.
Yeah.
Will and I are not convinced one way or the other. And
Right.
we do have a bond on this, we
did
do have a bond.
1.2 inches of rain the last rain.
Yeah,
Right.
the last rain was pretty
And
significant.
that's why I think his picture is proving that it's holding water, because it was a
But just
significant amount in a
in
short
water.
period.
Yeah,
It's
just
only
in
going up
water.
to the safety
Yeah.
shelf though.
Right.
It's not rising above that.
That's right, it's not going to the outlet. It's never discharged that I know of.
No.
Well, and how's
Which is-
that,
But that,
Right.
but that soil over there is already getting rills in it because it doesn't have any stabilization to it. The stuff is spread out.
on the side of the road?
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Where the discharge would go. yeah, I don't know about
Just sounds to me like they want us to pencil with it so they can get them sold. You know,
In the whole process.
I mean, it's, why even do a developer's agreement and agree to this stuff? Otherwise, else we just let people come in and build whatever they want, wherever they want.
With
Want us to
no
rush through the
electricity,
soil
no gas,
samples,
no-
and now it's our fault because we didn't require them to do soil
Right,
samples.
so-
It's, everything's being rushed through them.
Just blame it on me, I guess.
So you're a bad guy, Tony. So what action would need to be taken? Just like bullet point that.
You need to recite each one of the exceptions that you're granting. I have that 5A is going to be completed by him on time, so it's kind of moot. 5B completed by him on time, so it's moot. C and D, same thing.
E, we were gonna grant them until phase 2.
Phase 2 with the 10-foot setback or back further than where it is currently, so we have the location defined.
Yep,
Up to 10 foot, right.
No,
and
we
it must be
deferred
done
before.
before phase 2
Phase 2.
occupancy.
Phase 2, okay.
Yeah. For F, I have, you can postpone putting in the gating and fencing until the earthwork, site prep work, and slabs on phase 2 are done, or upon receipt of too many complaints by the village.
And then the rest was the expectation of it being done prior, right? With the exception of the landscaping.
The landscaping was.
Stabilized, but deferment of
To
the
spring.
actual, yeah, till spring.
Can we define that better than spring?
June 30th.
The end of spring,
Spring ends June 21st.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, it was close, but
You guys decide that.
That's all kind of weather dependent too.
It is.
I mean, you got
spring.
a thought puts you behind, or if you know.
Given every other argument we've had, I just want to set a date and say, instead of just saying spring. If it has to be deferred past that, at least then we have discussion on it and it's not open for interpretation. Seems like that's.
Go June 1st.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's pretty close, that sounds like a good deal.
The landscaping professionals, they'll get it done, I'm not concerned.
So I'm looking at M, for instance, paragraph M. Developer to file a complete set of as-built drawings. We don't have them yet. It's in the agreement. Doesn't sound like we're gonna get them,
That would not be done by that time. Doesn't sound like, right?
right?
Because of the as-built would include, well, again, I guess it depends. If the septic is in on time, then we should be able to get the as-bills.
No, that's just for
This
stormwater,
one
isn't
is
it?
specifically for stormwater.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha, sorry.
And I don't know why we don't have those yet, because stormwater's done,
He didn't
right?
give a response on that one, did he?
No, we didn't.
He said he ordered it a month ago and it's,
And I understand that. I mean, I work for an engineering company and we're booked out to February now.
I think if I was comfortable that the pond was functioning, if we could somehow fill the pond and see that it's not leaking, that the clay liner is working, that as-bills could be provided later. I mean, that's a verification of a volume, a volume and a release rate. I guess my bigger concern is that they're gonna go in, the public's gonna be all around, and that we got a pond that's not working and may have to be reconstructed. I'm not saying that's the case,
Yeah.
but,
Peace
I
of mind.
mean,
There's enough suspicion based on the field conditions.
yeah,
To
Will's
suggest
kind
you
of
want to
questioning
test
it. He's had a pond that he, has worked with before that wasn't working, that wasn't holding water, they had to go back in, and so he's got kind of a background on.
So that's only clay, right? It doesn't have a liner in it?
He has a clay liner, is it?
Well, clay liner, but not an impermeable like,
Yeah,
anything liner or anything
Like a
like that.
synthetic?
It just slows it down.
No, the type A liner, which required for the site, was acceptable as a 2-foot clay liner.
Okay.
I could wait on the as-built,
Assuming that test is
assuming that the pond
Comfort
is
level.
functioning,
Well,
So
then
we're gonna do a
if
test,
you're okay with that.
a pond test to village engineer satisfaction before occupancy,
Yeah,
and
and
as-built.
I don't know how we do that, we fill it up with water, I know Jamin probably has access to a water truck or
Maybe
Otherwise, we have fire department. that
public
could probably-
works.
How
I
many
mean-
thousands of gallons is that though?
yeah.
That's,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Water.
And then if we don't get any rain, how do we see? You know, then how do I verify, I don't know.
Well, that's what the surety bond's for.
Yeah, and we kept, that's right, we did keep some money for that.
I mean,
So maybe that could be pushed off till the next phase, and when the next phase comes in,
What's
it
the,
will have more impervious, and it will be directed to the pond. A better chance to see its functioning.
Right.
Cause like right now, the only thing that's collecting there is rainwater, correct?
is the pond.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
'cause
whatever
the
falls
winter
in the
out-
pond.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I mean, maybe that is a good thing to wait on.
so what else would be included with the stormwater management system as-built drawings? Would that include the laterals that's in now? Coming
Yeah.
to discharge as well?
Yeah, the pipes and the
Yeah.
rest. Yeah.
But anything, I'm just looking at the fact that we have to talk to the DNR about the adjacent soil. Is that going to affect anything with the stormwater management system and the septic as-built drawings?
Have made a note to, when we had that conversation with the DNR about that site, knowing what the soils are, pointing out that our pond discharges across that.
Okay.
And I want them to be aware that
Now we know that there's surfacial contamination.
that is how the site is functioning, and have them comment on that specifically.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't find that one email that.
No, I know, but and I agree, I think that was the assumption or the presumption that,
Yeah, that there just wouldn't be any,
Yeah.
there was a low chance of anything being
At
there.
that
but-
high level or at the surface.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Okay, so with respect to I and M, what would you like to?
Obviously require the test, right?
Do we have a means of doing that? Do we have a way to fill that pond?
I would not,
I've never done
I don't know that I would fill it. Filling the pond with a pump or a truck, you may damage the,
I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if
The
that's
road is-
feasible. You could put it through a stormwater,
Oh,
Right, but-
that's true, you can put right into the catch
but
basin.
man, I bet that's 50,000 gallons worth of water.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it could be
wouldn't.
hard to succeed, yeah. Like you said, we have the bond.
we have the bond, let's just,
There's no evidence that it's going somewhere else and creating issues.
right, no, I think it's just soaking in and.
Yeah, I mean, if it's so, it shouldn't, yeah, it might be on site, if it's not on site, I mean, we could wait and see, as the site gets closer to final grade, that should be filling in the water.
Right, once we get a little asphalt out there and some more roofs.
Yep,
It was designed to handle all of that runoff, and right now there's virtually no runoff.
yeah, and yeah,
Make sense?
So
We're gonna
gonna
hold off on
accept-
that until at least phase 2 time,
phase 2 for, as-built and then
or
verification.
final occupancy or
And
whatever.
Will's out there once a month in the
Yeah.
winter, so if he's gonna keep it, he'll keep an eye on,
Sure. Okay,
and then the as-built.
And then- yeah, M, same thing, right?
Yeah, I think I can. I think it's reasonable.
As far as paving outlined on the plan, Naomi, it sounds like we're gonna expect that'll be completed then by, okay.
That would be my recommendation.
So he's not asking for approval of building number 2, and he's not asking for approval of building number 4.
Just one.
So, ignore those. Landscaping we addressed, uses,
They're hanging.
keys, lighting is going to be done. Architecture should be according to oil, we can inspect it. And that's it. So if there's a motion to approve those exceptions.
Would be actually to send it to the.
Does this have to go to the board or no?
Not according to email from Mike today. Planning Commission has final say over this. I'll read his exact words.
So the conclusion.
Yeah. I won't comment about the requests in Jamie's email or those of the staff, as they should all be placed before the Planning Commission, whose members will make the final decisions.
Even though it's modifications to the developer's agreement.
I'm not an attorney and I don't play one. Okay.
We feel like we're all on board then, what we discussed?
I think so. I think there's some general consensus again of some of that relief, assuming that he can check all the other boxes, which seems like it might be a tall order, so that now is on him to
Right.
facilitate that, including the DNR concerns, so. Yeah. What's the chances? I don't know.
I think it's not enough, it's not gonna be, but we need to make sure that we have that memorial.
We just need a paper trail.
Yep.
Correct.
Exactly. Yep.
I make a motion to approve the changes that we discussed and the requirements.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4B, review, discussion, and setting of a date for the November and December 2021 Planning Commission meeting or meetings, since the fourth Thursday in November is Thanksgiving Day and the fourth Thursday in December is December 23rd.
It's 10 o'clock on Thanksgiving morning.
I'm gonna be long gone.
Food coma.
Just want to get out of it.
Everybody be sitting
My
on the
in-laws
couch.
are gonna be there, maybe, you know.
You want a break.
We can do the 18th.
What else? We have another meeting coming up. Is it a budget meeting or what? Is that week?
No, we're good. We got board on the
17th, public hearing. That what I'm thinking?
No, public hearing is gonna get pushed back to the 2nd of December.
All right, fair enough. I had it as a placeholder, so that's why I was like, I knew I had something.
It's changed.
Right?
Yep, it's
Yeah.
changed.
So, the 18th is good,
That's not Thanksgiving?
No, 25th is.
25th is Thanksgiving, correct? And, not last year, the year before, we combined November and
Yeah,
December.
because usually it's quiet.
So if anybody wants to do that, we could, I think we should keep them separate though, just because of the Jamin situation.
So then shoot for the 16th of December.
December, we could do the 16th. If that works for Mary.
I just have to look. It doesn't mean you can't have a meeting, but I just make sure that doesn't overlap another meeting.
If you don't have anything on the agenda, we can always.
Yeah, I'd be good with the 16th.
Okay. So I'll propose we do 11/18 and 12/16 as alternate dates for November and December. December pending anything on the agenda.
Want a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Fix that. Item 5, planners report. Mary.
I don't really have any updates for you. Lake Park would have been,
Outstanding.
the most substantial.
Item 6, fire inspector's report. Bill.
As you know,
Sorry to make you wait this long.
doesn't bother me at all. Was a very interesting meeting. See, fire prevention one was
Still
this,
pregnant tonight, well, August 20th.
I'm used to it, it's on me.
All right, can I start over again?
Please don't interrupt the gentleman.
Do I have your attention? That's what I would say to the kids when we went at Christ Lutheran in St. George for a fire prevention. And we booked a group in, kindergarten and mid, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th. And on the 6th, 7th, and 8th, what do you talk about the engine? You talk about the engine, you talk about, fire and that. They know all that. I mean, all the years prior, we did it. They didn't forget. So we talked about education in the fire schools. And we're surprised how many people are thinking about it. And how this department could help them get into it.
Plant that seed early.
Plant that seed early, and that's not just fire, EMS. I mean, we've had a group of this fire department, 10 years or 11 years that we've been here. I would say we had about 9 to 10, 12 people that ended up in the fire service, ended up in hospitals or in EMS service. And I think that's a big accomplishment
Absolutely.
for one little department to do. And that, for the future, would be the best thing that could ever happen. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Made it short, well, somewhat short.
Item 7, building inspector's report. Anything from, I think we already heard from Naomi on Jason. Item 8, engineer's report. Naomi.
Oh, Douglas Court. Well, I should have brought some detailed information for you on this one, but it will be going back to the village board. There's been a proposal from the developer on kind of a different treatment for the road. I'm not gonna do it justice, so I'm not gonna try to give you the details at this point.
I can jump in real quick because I did read it.
Thank you.
Basically, what Mike Payne and Dolan proposed is going in, milling off an inch, feathering in the driveways, coming back, and putting a very high-quality fine-grain asphalt over the top at 1.5 inches to bring it up to 4 inches, and feathering in all the driveways. Mike Timmers, I asked him immediately, does this fly? Yeah. He says this will be good. He said it's gonna give you the road quality you want, it's gonna last a long time, because he's using a higher quality asphalt. I asked Eric if he felt the same way, he said absolutely, this is a workable solution. It gives the residents a good quality road for many years, he said, and it doesn't take the developer and drown them in a bucket of apples.
Thank you.
So, that's the long and the short of it. I have the whole proposal from Payne and Dolan in an email somewhere. If anybody would like to see it, I can forward it on.
Who's Mike Timmers?
Who's the?
That's our road specialist from the tour.
He's been at the last
Was that
proposal.
last meeting
that's-
talking about it?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I guess I never knew his.
That was the first time I remember seeing
Oh,
him
sorry,
meeting
yeah.
him too, so it's news to
So,
me.
Sorry.
yeah, he's been handling it, and I mean, he's the guy to do it, so I would not.
That's cool, that's cool.
Well,
If anybody's watching, sorry.
yeah, no, Mike's their road specialist, and they've
He's been
asked
working
him
with
101 times.
So it looks
the
like that would
developer.
prevent it from potentially cracking where it would be feathered into the concrete.
Correct, and it's a
Yeah.
thick enough application where it's not gonna,
Yeah, it's more of a shinier, lower aggregate coating, because we only want to put 1.5 inches, so it's a different grade, but it's good. It's good.
if you're looking at sandpaper, it's like, 120 grit
It's
instead
gonna
of
look like
80.
a fancy parking lot
Yeah,
on the road, basically. You'll notice the difference in the asphalt look, but it looks nice.
So did they ever determine where the breakdown in communication was on what needed to happen out there?
I didn't ask because that is between the developer and his contractor, and ultimately, one of the two of them is paying.
Yeah, they run it together.
I'm just curious.
Right, no, I just let it
understand
go.
that.
I'm sure we'll hear at the board meeting on Thursday from Mike.
Yeah. When I approached Mike right before the meeting, he claimed it again, like he did during the meeting, that they were given the specs, they knew it wasn't, it was a surprise to him too.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So I think this is a good compromise. I mean, it's not even really a compromise. I mean, it's a good solution.
Right. I thought it was as well. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
We are still waiting, so Douglas Court, we are still waiting for as-bills, but as you know, it's hard to get people out there. As far as I know, everything, is holding up nicely at, that site. And then Brook East subdivision, we have the approved plans, we're working on the developer's agreement. As you know, the site was opened up, construction had started, I think maybe Mike Timmers had given you an update when I was unavailable. And immediately we got a call from Mr. Stiza that construction had started, unbeknownst to him. We met out there, took a look at the erosion control, which was our main concern. They did have an NOI. Since then, the site he stopped work immediately. The site has been hydro-seeded in the last pictures I saw from Will when he did an inspection. So Will's thinking it's probably gonna be okay going into winter.
No harm, no foul.
That was just hydro-seeded in the last few days, a week.
I think it's been a week and a half, I think.
So, I mean, Will will probably go out there maybe one more time, but he said he went out and it's been hydro-seeded where it needed to be, so we gotta wait and see. Keep an eye on it. Any other updates? I don't think I have anything. Unless you guys have any questions for me?
No questions, we'll move on. Little nice correspondence, did you have anything? There was one email in your packet, I think everybody saw it. It came in from a citizen addressing Blue Park, so. That being said, Mr. Bennett,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
That's so fun.
It's 5 to 10.
He told me I was supposed to do it at 7:05.
This is on
I
did it myself.
Cause he
Jinx
did it
us,
at the
didn't you?
Yeah, I did it.
Oh.
Well, there's still time to go watch.
I know. I do.
Laura, do you want a little?
Absolutely.
Hey, no problem.
I'm I got tons of those. These things are like gold.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
My brother was 18 years older than he was. Wow.
Thank you.
I was born
Should I
in
drop that?
1943.
Thank you.
So how are you related to Jeremy?
My cousin.
He's your cousin.
Yeah.
He's
He's fun.
Is he?
Seems like